The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in their assigned seats, arranged by species rank. At the very top sat the first-tier species, the Altarians with their golden skin and glowing eyes, the Vorthic with their crystal bodies that sparkled like diamonds, and the ancient ethereals who floated in their energy forms. Not far below them, in the lower sections, sat the humans. Earth's delegation occupied a small corner marked with the symbol of a Tier 3 species. The seats were uncomfortable metal chairs, nothing like the floating platforms and luxury pods given to the higher-ranked species. Commander Jiwon Kim shifted in her seat, her military uniform crisp despite the long journey from Earth. She had served in the Earth Defense Forces for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for the humiliation of these council meetings. Beside her sat Dr. Minho Park, a quiet man with sharp eyes who studied alien biology. He pretended to take notes during meetings, but Ji-won knew he was really documenting council technology and weapons. Next to him was Ambassador Sola Lee, Earth's chief diplomat. She was the only human who could speak the council's ancient language fluently, and she had spent 5 years trying to improve Earth's status through careful negotiations. At the head of their small group sat General Taeyan Cho, the oldest among them. His weathered face showed the strain of dealing with the Council's endless demands. Earth had been part of the Galactic Council for 30 years now, ever since first contact. In all that time, humanity had never been allowed to rise above Tier 3. Status. The Council Arbiter, a massive creature called Vexthul, raised one of his 6 arms. His voice boomed across the chamber through translation devices. Today we discuss Resource Allocation Protocol 779. The Altarian Empire requires additional workforce for their new mining operations in the Kepler sector. Altarian. Prime Minister Zalthek stood up on his golden platform. His voice was smooth and cold. The Empire has identified Earth as the most suitable source for this workforce. We require 40% of their current population. These humans will be relocated to serve our mining colonies. Ji-won felt her blood turn to ice. 40%. That was nearly 3 billion people. She looked at her companions and saw the same shock in their eyes. Dr. Minho Park's pen snapped in his grip. Ambassador Sola Lee stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to the small human woman. Honored Arbiter, Earth respectfully declines this request. Our people are not property to be relocated at will. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. Several species had never heard a Tier 3 representative refuse a direct order from a first-tier empire. Vexthul's multiple eyes focused on Sola Lee. Ambassador Lee, you seem to misunderstand. This was not a request. This was an allocation order. Tier 3 species do not have the authority to refuse first-tier demands. Sola Lee's voice remained steady, but Ji-won could see her hands shaking slightly. Then Earth formally requests a review of this order. Surely the Council recognizes that forcibly relocating 3 billion sentient beings violates the basic rights. Charter. Prime Minister Zalthek laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Basic rights charter? That applies only to recognized civilized species. Tier 3 species exist to serve their betters. This has been Council law for 5,000 years. General Taeyan Cho leaned forward and whispered urgently to Sola Lee. Don't push this further. We're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. But Sola Lee stepped forward. Honored Arbiter, Earth has contributed to Council science, technology, and defense for 3 decades. Human soldiers have died defending Council worlds. Human scientists have solved problems that stumped first-tier researchers. Human diplomats have negotiated peace treaties that prevented galactic wars. We have earned the right to be treated as equals. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Species throughout the hall began shouting at the human delegation. Dvorthic crystalline beings chimed in harmony, their sound like breaking bells. The ethereals pulsed with angry red energy. Even some Tier 2 species joined in, condemning the humans' audacity. Vexthul slammed his massive fist on his podium. The sound echoed like thunder. Silence. The chamber fell quiet instantly. His 6 eyes glowed with fury as he stared down at Sola Lee. Ambassador Lee, your species continues to demonstrate why it remains at Tier 3 status. You lack the wisdom to know your place in the galactic order. Prime Minister Zalfik's golden skin brightened with pleasure. Perhaps it is time for a lesson in proper respect. Arbiter, I request permission to demonstrate the consequences of defying first-tier authority. Vexthul nodded slowly. Permission. Granted. What happened next took only seconds, but it felt like hours to Jiwan. Prime Minister Zalfek raised his hand. Energy crackled between his fingers, the same energy that powered Altarian starships and weapons. Sola Lee looked up at him with no fear in her eyes, her chin raised defiantly. The energy beam struck her in the chest. Her body convulsed as the neural disintegration field tore through her nervous system. She collapsed to the chamber floor, her eyes still open but empty of life. The energy field had destroyed her brain while leaving her body intact. The cruelest form of execution known to galactic civilization. Dr. Minho Park dropped to his knees beside her, checking for any sign of life. His hands shook as he closed. Her eyes. She's gone, he whispered. G1 stared at her friend's body. Sola Lee had been more than just a diplomat. She had been a bridge between humanity and the galaxy, someone who truly believed that peaceful coexistence was possible. Now she lay dead on the cold chamber floor while thousands of alien beings looked on with satisfaction or indifference. Vexthul's voice boomed again. Let this serve as an example to all Tier 3 species. The Council's authority is absolute. Earth's new delegation will confirm the workforce allocation order within 24 hours. Something inside Jiwan snapped. She had spent her entire career following orders, respecting authority, trying to work within the system. She had watched her people be treated like servants and property for 30 years. She had seen friends die in council wars while there. Species got no recognition or respect. And now she had watched the council murder, the best diplomat humanity had ever produced. Ji-Wan stood up slowly. Her voice carried clearly across the vast chamber. Earth hereby severs all ties with the Galactic Council. We recognize no authority but our own. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Even Vexthul seemed shocked by her words. Then chaos erupted. Thousands of beings began shouting at once. Security forces started moving toward the human delegation. Ji-Wan reached into her uniform jacket and pulled out a small device that Dr. Minho Park had given her before the meeting. Just in case, he had said. She pressed the activation button. The electromagnetic pulse burst from the device in all directions. Every piece of council technology in the chamber, translation devices, recording equipment, communication systems, even the lighting, went dead instantly. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the chamber in red light. Move, Ji-Wan shouted. She grabbed Dr. Minho Park's arm and pulled him toward the nearest exit. General Taeyen Cho was already on his feet, his old soldier's instincts taking over. They left Sola Lee's body behind. There was no choice. As they ran through the darkened corridors of the council complex. Ji-Wan's mind was already racing ahead. Earth had just declared war on the most powerful military alliance in galactic history. Every human in council space was now a target. The response would be swift and brutal. But as she thought about Sola Lee's lifeless eyes, Ji-Wan knew they had made the only choice they could. Some things were worth more than survival. Some things were worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. The galaxy was about to discover what humans could do when they had nothing left to lose. The Earth Defense Command Center buzzed with activity like a kicked anthill. Admiral Unibay stood in front of the massive display screen that showed the solar system. Red dots marked the positions of enemy ships. So many red dots that they looked like a swarm of angry insects surrounding Earth. 3,000 ships, reported Lieutenant Summon Jang from her station. The Council has sent forces from 47 different species. They're holding position just outside Pluto's orbit. Admiral Unibay had gray hair and tired eyes, but her voice remained steady. She had commanded Earth's defense forces for 15 years, always knowing this day might come. What's our status? Captain Haiyan Kong stepped forward. He was young for a ship commander, only 32, but he had earned his position through skill, not politics. The stealth destroyer Indomitable is ready for deployment. All experimental systems are online. Behind him, Engineer Narration checked her tablet. She was barely 25, but had designed most of Earth's new weapon systems. The quantum phase shields are operational on all defense platforms. The Council weapons shouldn't be able to touch us. Admiral Unibay nodded. And the platforms themselves? Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, behind Jupiter's moons, and in Saturn's rings, Narration replied. The Council sensors can't detect them. They still think we only have the basic defense grid around Earth and Mars. Dr. Minho Park sat at a corner desk, still wearing the same clothes from 3 days ago when they had escaped the Council chamber. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but he worked steadily on his computer. I finished analyzing the Council fleet composition. Most of their ships are over 200 years old. Their technology hasn't improved much in centuries. General Taeyun Cho walked over to the main display. His uniform was rumpled, and he looked older than his 60 years. That's because the Council doesn't allow innovation. They keep everyone locked in the same old patterns. Commander Ji-won Kim stood near the communication station. She had barely slept since making her declaration to the Council. Any word from our people in Council space? Most human ships have made it to the rally points, reported Communications Officer Damin Rowe. We've lost contact with 12 vessels, but over 300 have successfully withdrawn from Council territory. The main screen flickered, and a new image appeared. It showed a massive alien ship, larger than a city. The hull was covered in golden plates that gleamed like mirrors. This was the Council flagship Divine Authority, commanded by Fleet Marshal Quinter of the Altarian Empire. Incoming transmission, announced Damin Rowe. Put it through, Admiral Unibay ordered. The image of Fleet Marshal Quinter filled the screen. He was tall and elegant, with golden skin that seemed to glow from within. His eyes were like liquid fire, and when he spoke, his voice carried the arrogance of someone who had never been defeated. Humans of Earth, Quinter said, I am Fleet. Marshal Quinter, Supreme Commander of this pacification fleet. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. All human military forces will be disbanded. Your leaders will be executed for treason against the Council. Your population will be relocated as previously ordered. He paused, and his golden face showed what might have been amusement. If you comply, we will make your deaths quick. If you resist, we will make an example of your species that will be remembered for 1,000 years. Admiral Unibay stepped forward. This is Admiral Unibay of the Earth Defense Forces. Earth rejects your demands. We are a free people, and we will remain free. Quinter laughed, a sound like silver bells ringing. Free? You are insects pretending to be eagles. We have 3,000 ships. You have barely 50. This will not be a battle. It will be an extermination. The transmission ended. The command center fell silent for a moment. Captain Haiyan Kong broke the silence. Admiral, Request permission to take the Indomitable on a scouting mission. Admiral Yunibei looked at him carefully. This isn't about scouting, is it, Captain? Hien Kong's jaw was set with determination. No, ma'am. It's about showing them that humans don't scare easily. Engineer Narration looked up from her tablet. The Indomitable is equipped with our newest quantum torpedoes. If Captain Kong can get close enough to their flagship, it's suicide, General. Taiyun Cho said bluntly. 1 ship against 3,000. Maybe, Hien Kong replied. But they're not expecting us to attack. They think we'll sit here shaking in fear until they decide to destroy us. Dr. Minho Park looked up from his analysis. Actually, it might work. The Council fleet is arranged in a traditional formation. They're following battle tactics that are hundreds of years old. They won't expect a small ship to attack directly. Admiral Yunibei studied the display showing the enemy fleet. The Council ships were arranged in perfect geometric patterns, like a textbook formation. It was beautiful and orderly, but it was also predictable. What's your plan, Captain? She asked. Hien Kong pointed to the display. The Indomitable has full stealth capability. We approach from below the solar plane where their sensors are weakest. We target their flagship with everything we have. Even if we don't destroy it, we'll show them that Earth won't go down without a fight. And then? General Taiyuan asked. Then we run like hell, Hien Kong said with a grim smile. Engineer Narration stood up. I'm going with him. If something goes wrong with the quantum systems, you'll need someone who understands them. This is my mission, Hien Kong protested. And those are my weapons, Narration shot back. I know how they work better than anyone. Admiral Yunibei made her decision. Permission granted. But this is not a suicide mission, Captain. Your job is to hit them hard and come home. We need every ship and every person for what's coming next. 6 hours later, the Indomitable slipped away from Earth's moon under full stealth. The ship was smaller than most Council vessels, built for speed and stealth rather than raw firepower. Captain Hien Kong sat in the command chair while Engineer Narration monitored the weapon systems. Approaching the target, reported pilot Kiwan Nam. The flagship is holding position in the center of their formation. Any sign they've detected us? Hien Kong asked. Negative. Their sensors are focused on Earth. They're not watching their flanks. Engineer Narration checked her displays. Quantum torpedoes are armed and ready. We'll have one shot at this. The Indomitable moved like a shadow through space. On the main screen, the Council flagship grew larger and larger. It was massive beyond imagination, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. But it was also old, built to intimidate rather than to fight a clever enemy. Target acquired, Narration announced. All weapons locked on the flagships. Main reactor. Captain Hien Kong took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few seconds. Fire. The quantum torpedoes streaked across space faster than light itself. They struck the Divine Authority before the Council sensors even detected the attack. The massive ship's shields flared and died as exotic matter tore through them like paper. The torpedoes punched through the golden hull and detonated inside the main reactor chamber. Marshal Kunter had just enough time to realize what was happening before his flagship exploded in a ball of white fire. The explosion was so bright, it could be seen from Earth without a telescope. Target destroyed, Narration shouted. The flagship is gone. Around them, the Council fleet erupted into chaos. Ships scattered in all directions as captains tried to figure out what had happened. Some fired wildly at empty space. Others collided with each other in their panic. Time to go, Captain Hien Kong ordered. Maximum speed, back to Earth. The Indomitable raced toward home as the Council fleet slowly reorganized behind them. The humans had drawn first blood, and it was a devastating blow. The Council's greatest military leader was dead, and their most powerful ship was space debris. But as the human ship fled toward Earth, 3,000 enemy vessels began moving toward the inner solar system. The real battle was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the Council fleet arrived at Earth's doorstep. What should have been a quick victory for the aliens had turned into a bloody stalemate. The siege of the Sol system continued, but the galaxy itself was beginning to. Burned out on the bridge of the deep space reconnaissance vessel Shadow Walker, Captain Sebenru studied the latest intelligence reports. Her ship was far from Earth, hidden in an asteroid field in the Vega system, but she could still feel the weight of humanity's desperate situation. Another supply convoy destroyed, reported her communications officer. That's the 15th one this month. Captain Sebenru nodded grimly. The Shadow Walker was one of 20 human ships conducting hit-and-run attacks throughout Council space. They struck fast and disappeared before the enemy could respond. It was the only way to fight an enemy that outnumbered them 100 to 1. "Any word from Agent Jiho Yoon?" she asked. His last transmission was 3 days ago. He's still undercover on Nexus Station, trying to make contact with the resistance groups. Special Agent Jiho Yoon was risking his life deep in Council territory. He looked human enough to pass for one of the slave species, and his job was to find allies among the oppressed races. It was dangerous work. If the Council discovered his true identity, they would execute him slowly and publicly. On Nexus Station, a massive trading hub in the heart of Council space, Jiho Yoon sat in a crowded bar that smelled of alien liquor and desperation. He wore the simple clothes of a maintenance worker, just another face in the crowd of lesser species, who kept the station running. Across from him sat a creature that looked like a walking tree. This was Hyan 1, a member of the Cytherian species. The Cytherians were master engineers, but the Council classified them as Tier 5, barely above animals. They were forced to do manual labor while their brilliant minds were wasted. "Your people have stirred up quite a storm," Hyan 1 said in the trade language. His voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Half the galaxy is talking about the humans who defied the Council." Jiho Yoon leaned forward carefully. "What are they saying?" "Many things. Some say you're fools who will be crushed like insects. Others say you're brave warriors who refuse to bow down." Hyan 1's bark-like face showed what might have been a smile. "But there's something else. Something the Council doesn't want anyone to know." "What?" Hyan 1 looked around the bar to make sure no one was listening. "We've been analyzing Council technology for generations." "Do you know what we discovered?" Jiho Yoon shook his head. "It never changes. The same weapons, the same ships, the same computers they've used for thousands of years. They don't innovate because they don't allow innovation. They're terrified that if the lower species develop new technology, we might become too powerful to control." Jiho Yoon felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying they're deliberately keeping everyone primitive?" "Not primitive, controlled. My people alone could revolutionize galactic engineering if we were allowed to work freely. The Nomians understand battle tactics better than any Council general, but they're classified as livestock. The Zephyrians can manipulate energy in ways that would make Council weapons look like toys, but they're forced to work as servants." The implications hit Jiho Yoon like a physical blow. The entire galactic civilization was a lie. The Council maintained power not through superiority, but through suppression. "How many species feel this way?" he asked. Hyan 1's eyes gleamed. "More than you might think. Word of your rebellion has spread everywhere. For the first time in millennia, the lower species are asking themselves why they should obey the Council's rules." 3 systems away, on the industrial world of Corvin Prime, another conversation was taking place. Counselor Hyan 1, a former human diplomat who had been stranded in council space when Earth declared independence, sat in a hidden basement, with representatives from a dozen different species. The basement was dark and cramped, lit only by a few flickering light panels. But the beings gathered there represented something that had never existed before, a true alliance of the oppressed. "The humans have shown us something important," Heon once said to the group. "The council can be defied. Their power is not absolute." A creature that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles. This was a Nomian, one of the species the council treated as animals despite their incredible intelligence. "Our strategic analysis indicates the council's military is overextended. They have committed most of their forces to the siege of Earth. Their other territories are vulnerable. My people can sabotage their manufacturing plants," added a Zephyrian, whose energy form flickered like living lightning. "We maintain their equipment. We know exactly how to break it." Heon Wan felt hope rising in her chest. For 30 years, she had tried to work within the council system, believing that gradual change was possible. Now she realized the truth. The system could never be reformed because it was designed to prevent change. "What do you need from us?" she asked. The Nomian's compound eyes glittered. "Coordination. Leadership. The humans started this rebellion, but they cannot finish it alone. We need to strike together across multiple worlds at the same time." Over the following weeks, the underground network grew rapidly. Captain Sebenru's ship carried secret messages between star systems. Agent Jiho Yoon moved carefully through council space, making contact with resistance cells. Former Counselor Heon Wan coordinated uprisings on 200 different worlds. The message was simple but powerful. Humanity has shown that the council can be defied. Now it's your turn to be free. The council's response was swift and brutal. When the first uprisings began on the mining world of Kepler-7, council forces responded with orbital bombardment. Entire cities were reduced to glass and ash. The message was clear. Rebellion would be met with total destruction. But instead of crushing the resistance, the brutality only made it stronger. Species that had remained neutral were horrified by the council's willingness to commit genocide. Even some Tier 2 species began questioning whether the council truly represented civilization or just organized tyranny. On the bridge of her ship, Captain Sebenru received a priority transmission from Earth. Admiral Yunabei's tired face appeared. On the screen, "Captain, we're seeing revolts breaking out across the galaxy. How many species have joined the resistance?" "Over 400 at last count," Sebenru reported. "It's not just the lower-tier species anymore. We have Tier 2 worlds providing supplies and safe haven." Admiral Yunabei looked amazed. 400 species? The council made a mistake when they started using biological weapons and mass executions. Many species are deciding they'd rather die fighting than live as slaves. Back on Earth, Dr. Minho Park worked frantically in his laboratory. The siege had been going on for months, and both sides were running low on resources. But something unexpected was happening. The rebel species were sharing their suppressed technologies with humanity. "Look at this," he said to engineer Narration, who was helping him analyze alien technology. "The Kitherians sent us blueprints for quantum computers that are 50 years ahead of anything the council uses. The Zephyrians have energy manipulation techniques we never imagined." Narration stared at the data streaming across her screen. "If we can integrate even half of this technology into our defense systems, we might actually have a chance, Doctor." Minho Park finished. The war that had started as Earth's rebellion was becoming something much larger. Across the galaxy, species that had been oppressed for thousands of years were rising up. Ancient grudges exploded into violence as former slaves turned on their masters. Trade routes collapsed as shipping was disrupted by constant fighting. Council found itself fighting a war on 1,000 fronts. Their rigid command structure designed for controlling a peaceful empire, was completely unprepared for galaxy-wide revolution. Orders took days to travel between star systems. Local commanders had no authority to adapt to changing situations. On situations, Centralis Prime, the Council's capital world, emergency sessions ran day and night. The great chamber where Ambassador Sola Lee had died 6 months earlier now echoed with panicked voices as council members tried to understand how their perfect order had collapsed so quickly. Arbiter Vexthal slammed his massive fist on the podium. How many worlds are now in open rebellion? Over 800, Your Eminence, reported a nervous aide. The number grows daily. This is impossible. We have ruled the galaxy for 5,000 years. A new voice spoke from the shadows. Perhaps that is the problem. All eyes turned to see Prime Minister Zalfek of the Altarian Empire. His golden skin was dim with worry, and his usually perfect composure was cracking. What do you mean? Vexthal demanded. We have ruled through fear and suppression for so long that we forgot how to actually govern. The humans showed the galaxy something we thought was impossible, that the Council could be defeated. Now every oppressed species believes it can be free. Vexthal's 6 eyes blazed with fury. Then we crush them all. We sterilize every rebel world and start over. With what forces? Zalfek asked quietly. Half our fleet is trapped at Earth. The other half is scattered across the galaxy fighting brush fires. We don't have enough ships to destroy 800 worlds. For the first time in his long life, Arbiter Vexthal felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The massive fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation. Ships from 400 different species flew together under a single banner, the Free Worlds Alliance. At the center of this unprecedented armada was the human flagship Liberty, where Commander Doyan Han stood before the largest gathering of allied commanders in galactic history. The war room was a marvel of cooperation. Kitherian engineers worked beside Zephyrian energy specialists. Nomian strategists shared battle plans with human tactical officers. Species that had been enemies for centuries now fought side by side against their common oppressor. Final intelligence report, announced Dr. Yoonji Choi from her position at the science station. She was pale and thin from months of non-stop research, but her eyes burned with determination. Centralis Prime is defended by 8,000 council ships. It's the largest military concentration in galactic history. Commander Doyun Han studied the tactical display showing the Council's capital world. The planet was surrounded by layer after layer of defensive ships, like an onion made of metal and weapons. Ancient shield generators, some dating back 5,000 years, protected the surface. What about their planetary defenses? Asked Admiral Sujin Lim, Earth's tactical coordinator. Quantum barrier shields that can stop anything short of a nova. Dr. Yoonji Choi replied, energy weapons won't work. Kinetic weapons won't work. Even our most advanced torpedoes will be useless. A creature that looked like living crystal chimed softly. This was Architect Velinara of the Vorthok Republic, one of the few first-tier species to join the rebellion. The barriers draw power from the planetary core itself. As long as Centralis Prime exists, the shields cannot be broken. Commander Doyan Han felt the weight of 400 species looking to him for answers. He was only 35 years old, a career soldier who had never expected to lead a galactic revolution. But Admiral Yunabei had chosen him personally for this mission. Dr. Choi, he said, tell them about the quantum nexus. Dr. Yoonji Choi activated a holographic display that showed the internal structure of Centralis Prime. Deep beneath the planet's surface, a massive crystalline structure pulsed with energy. This is the quantum control nexus, she explained. It's the central hub that coordinates all Council technology across the galaxy. Every ship, every weapon, every communication system, is connected to it through quantum entanglement. The Allied commanders leaned forward with interest. Captain Sebin Rue, whose ship had brought crucial intelligence from deep behind enemy lines, spoke up. "What does that mean for us?" "It means if we can reach the Nexus and upload a specially designed virus, we can shut down all Council technology." Simultaneously, Dr. Yoonji Choi said, every ship, every weapon, every defense system would go dead at the same time. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Architect Velinara's crystal body flickered with excitement. A single strike to end the war entirely. But the Nexus is located 15 kilometers beneath the planet's surface, Commander Doyon Han continued. It's protected by the most advanced security systems in the galaxy. Getting there would require penetrating the orbital defenses, landing on the most heavily guarded planet in known space, and fighting our way through automated defense systems that have never been defeated. A Nomian tactical specialist, whose insect-like appearance hid a brilliant strategic mind, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Probability of success is approximately 0.03%. Those are terrible odds, admitted Admiral. Sujin Lim. Commander Doyon Han looked around the room at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Some were human, some were alien, but all of them had the same expression, desperate hope mixed with grim determination. "They are terrible odds," he agreed, "but they're the only chance we have. If we fail here, the Council will crush our worlds. One by one, they'll make sure no species ever thinks of rebellion again." Former Councilor Hyun Won, who had become the political leader of the resistance, stood up slowly. "Commander Han is right. This is our moment. We either win here or we lose everything." The vote was unanimous. 400 species agreed to risk everything on one final assault. 3 days later, the Free Worlds Alliance fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Centralist system. The Council had been expecting them. Their own fleet was arranged in perfect formation around the capital world. Both sides had committed everything to this battle. On the Bridge of the Liberty, Commander Doyon Han watched as the enemy fleet began moving toward them. 8,000 ships against 4,000. The Council still had the advantage in numbers, but the Alliance had something the Council lacked: unity of purpose. "All ships, this is Commander Han," he broadcast across. "The fleet. Today we fight not for conquest, but for freedom. Not for glory, but for the right of all beings to determine their own destiny. Whatever happens in the next few hours, remember that you are fighting for something greater than yourselves." The battle began with a massive exchange of energy weapons. That lit up space like a second sun. Council ships fired in perfect coordination, their ancient tactics unchanged for millennia. But the Alliance fleet fought differently. Cytherian engineers had modified their weapons. Zephyrian energy specialists had enhanced their shields, and Nomian strategists had developed new battle formations, while the main fleets engaged each other. Commander Doyon Han led a small strike force toward the planet. His team consisted of 50 volunteers from 20 different species, each chosen for their specialized skills. Dr. Yoonji Choi was with them, carrying the virus that could end the war. The planetary assault was a nightmare of defensive fire and automated weapons. Council fighter craft swarmed around them like angry insects. Ancient defense satellites, some as large as space stations, targeted anything that moved. But the strike force pressed on, taking terrible losses. "We've lost 12 ships," reported Navigator Kiwan Nam, as another explosion lit up their screens. "Keep going," Commander Doyon ordered. "We're almost through." They crash-landed on Centralist Prime's surface in a storm of weapons fire. The planet was a maze of crystal spires and floating platforms, all connected by streams of pure energy. Council security forces were already moving to intercept them. The fight through the planet's interior was brutal. Ancient guardian robots, some as tall as buildings, blocked their path. Energy barriers sealed corridors behind them. Automated weapons tracked their every move. One by one, the strike team members fell. Dr. Yoonji Choi clutched the data cylinder, containing the virus as they fought their way deeper into the planet. "How much farther?" she gasped. "2 more levels," Commander Doyon replied, firing his weapon at a guardian robot. "We're almost there." By the time they reached the quantum control nexus, only 12 members of the strike team were still alive. The nexus chamber was vast beyond imagination, filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with the power of a star. This was the heart of council power, the source of their control over the galaxy. There, Dr. Yoonji Choi pointed to a central access point. "I need to plug into that terminal." Council security forces were pouring into the chamber. Commander Doyon Han turned to his remaining team members. "Hold them off, whatever it takes." The final battle was desperate and heroic. Humans, Catherians, Nomians, and Zephyrians fought side by side against overwhelming odds. They died protecting Dr. Yoonji Choi as she worked to upload the virus that would free the galaxy. "Upload at 60%, she called out over the sound of weapons fire. "Commander." Doyon Han felt energy bolts searing past his head as he returned fire. Half his team was already down. How much longer? 80%, almost there. A massive explosion rocked the chamber as council reinforcements blasted through the walls. Commander Doyon Han saw Dr. Yoonji Choi hit by weapons fire. She collapsed. Over the terminal, blood spreading across her uniform. 95%, she whispered. "I just need a few more seconds." Commander Doyon Han threw himself between her and the advancing council forces. Energy bolts burned through his armor, but he kept firing. Around him, the last of his team made their final stand. "Upload complete." Dr. Yoonji Choi shouted with her last breath. The virus spread through the quantum network faster than thought. Itself. On every council ship, in every weapons system, across every planet in their empire, the lights went out. 8,000 warships went dead in space. Planetary shields collapsed. Communication networks fell silent. Commander Doyon Han smiled as council weapons fire finally found him. The virus was spreading, the galaxy was free, and their sacrifice had not been in vain. As darkness closed around him, he could hear the sound of celebration from the Alliance fleet above. The war was over. Freedom had won. The silence was deafening. For the first time in 5,000 years, the Galactic Council's communication networks were completely dead. Across the galaxy, billions of beings stared at blank screens and silent radios, wondering what would happen next. On Earth, President My Song stood in the rebuilt Global Assembly Hall, looking out at representatives from over 600 species. 3 months had passed since the virus had shut down all council technology, and the galaxy was still struggling to understand its new reality. President My Song was a former diplomat who had spent 20 years trying to improve Earth's position through peaceful negotiation. Now she found herself responsible for helping to rebuild galactic civilization itself. She was 52 years old, with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes, but the weight of her new responsibilities had aged her considerably. "The Altarian Empire has collapsed completely," reported General Woojin Lee from his position at the military briefing station. He was a career soldier, tall and broad-shouldered, who had earned his position through decades of service. There, Golden Fleets are powerless without their quantum control systems. Several Altarian worlds are requesting protection from revenge attacks by former slave species. Ambassador Yeren Kim, a brilliant young woman who had been chosen to help design the new galactic government, looked up from her data tablet. The Vorthic Republic is fragmenting too. Without centralized control, Their crystal cities are going dark one by one. They're having food riots on 12 different worlds. President Myray Song felt the enormity of the situation pressing down on her shoulders. The galaxy had been held together by the Council's iron control for so long that, when that control disappeared, everything began falling apart. Ancient grudges exploded into violence. Trade routes collapsed. Entire star systems were cut off from the rest of civilization. What about the former Tier 5 species? She asked. General Wujin Li's expression was grim. That's where it gets complicated. The Zithari Collective has declared war on everyone who ever oppressed them. They're using captured Council weapons to attack civilian targets. The Mordic clans are raiding shipping lanes throughout the Outer Rim. Some of the liberated species are becoming as brutal as their former masters. This was the nightmare scenario that kept President Myray Song awake at night. Earth had started this rebellion to free the galaxy from oppression, but freedom without order was just chaos. Billions of innocent beings were suffering as civilization collapsed around them. We need to do something, Ambassador Yeren Kim said. People are looking to us for leadership. Every day we delay, more worlds descend into anarchy. President Myray Song nodded slowly. Call a General Assembly. It's time to propose the Federation Charter. 2 weeks later, representatives from over 800 species gathered on the neutral world of Haven Station. The station had been built in the no-man's land between Council and Rebel territories, and it had become the unofficial capital of the new Galactic Order. The main assembly hall was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Cytherian architects had designed spaces suitable for beings of every size and shape. Zephyrian energy specialists provided power systems that could support hundreds of different atmospheric requirements. Human diplomats had organized the seating arrangements to prevent ancient enemies from starting fights. President Myray Song stood at the central podium, looking out at the most diverse gathering in galactic history. There were beings of crystal and energy, creatures of metal and flesh, entities that existed as pure thought, and others that communicated through chemical signals. Friends, she began, her voice carried by translation systems to every corner of the hall. We stand at a crossroads. We can choose to build something better than what came before, or we can watch the galaxy tear itself apart. A Vorthic representative, his crystal body dim with grief, spoke up. Easy words from the species that destroyed our civilization. Earth started this war. Earth should fix it. Angry voices rose from across the hall. A Cytherian engineer stood up, his bark-like skin rustling with emotion. The Council destroyed our civilization long before Earth ever fired a shot. They kept us as slaves for millennia. And now some of you are becoming the new oppressors, called out a representative from the Delany Federation, a small peaceful species that had remained neutral throughout the war. The Zithari have attacked our shipping convoys 3 times. This month, where is the freedom in that? President Myray Song raised her hand for silence. This is exactly why we need the Federation Charter. Freedom without law is chaos. Law without justice is tyranny. We need both. Ambassador Yeren Kim activated a holographic display that showed the proposed new government structure. The Galactic Federation would be based on 3 principles: equal representation regardless of technological development, democratic decision-making, and shared technological advancement. The proposal was revolutionary. Instead of the Council's rigid hierarchy based on arbitrary species rankings, every world would have a voice proportional to its population. Instead of suppressing innovation, the Federation would encourage the free exchange of knowledge and technology. But not everyone was convinced. A group of former Council species, led by the surviving Altarian nobles, argued that some species were naturally superior to others. Several human extremist factions claimed that Earth should rule the galaxy as the rightful victors of the war. The debates went on for months. General Wujin Li found himself constantly mediating disputes between former enemies. Some arguments turned violent, requiring intervention by Federation peacekeeping forces drawn from dozens of different species. The first major crisis came when the Hegemony Remnant, a terrorist group composed of former Council elites, launched a series of attacks on Federation worlds. They used stolen Council weapons and ancient sleeper agents to strike at civilian targets, hoping to prove that the new order was too weak to maintain peace. General Wu Jin-Li led a coalition force to stop them, but he faced a difficult challenge. The Federation's military was a patchwork of different species with different fighting styles, different technologies, and different ideas about warfare. Getting them to work together was like herding cats. The decisive battle came at the Sigma Draconis system, where the Hegemony Remnant had established a secret base. General Wu Jin-Li's fleet included human destroyers, Githerian engineering ships, Nomian tactical cruisers, and Zephyrian energy vessels. On paper, they should have been an unstoppable force. In practice, they could barely coordinate their movements. "Human ships are moving too fast," complained Captain Valthara of the Githerian engineering corps. "Our vessels cannot keep up." "Nomian tactical formations are too complex," reported Commander Chun of the human destroyer Courage. "We don't understand their battle patterns." General Wu Jin-Li realized that military cooperation required more than just good intentions. "All ships, this is General Li. We're going to do this the human way. Simple, direct, and together. Follow my lead." The battle was messy and chaotic, but it worked. The combined fleet overwhelmed the Hegemony Remnant through sheer determination and mutual support. When a Githerian ship was damaged, human vessels provided cover. When Nomian tactical computers were jammed, Zephyrian ships shared their sensors. Slowly, painfully, they learned to fight as one. The victory at Sigma Draconis proved that the Federation could defend itself, but it also revealed how much work remained to be done. Building a just galactic civilization would take generations. Ambassador Yeren Kim worked tirelessly to mediate the first major interspecies dispute under the new charter. The Corvani Republic and the Theshan Collective had been fighting over mining rights to an asteroid belt for 3 centuries. Under Council rule, such disputes were settled by whoever had more political influence. Under Federation law, they had to be resolved through negotiation and compromise. The negotiations took 6 months and nearly collapsed several times. The Corvani wanted exclusive access to rare metals needed for their technology. The Theshans claimed the asteroids were sacred burial grounds for their ancestors. Both sides had valid points, and both sides were ready to go to war. Ambassador Yering Kim finally proposed a solution that satisfied no one completely, but gave everyone something they needed. The asteroids would be jointly administered, with mining proceeds shared equally, and certain areas preserved as memorial sites. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. 50 years later, the galaxy looked very different. Former slave species had become technological powerhouses. Art and culture flourished on worlds that had been industrial wastelands under Council rule. The rigid barriers between species had begun to break down as beings worked together toward common goals. On a space station orbiting the galactic core, a diverse group of young beings from dozens of species worked together on humanity's most ambitious project yet, the first expedition beyond the galactic rim. The team included humans, Githerians, Nomians, Zephyrians, and many others, all united by curiosity and the desire to explore the unknown. Dr. Kira Park, the mission commander and granddaughter of the legendary Dr. Minho Park, looked out at the swirling stars of the galactic edge. She was young, barely 30, but she carried the hopes of 600 species on her shoulders.